Why do we often blame victims for their misfortunes? This perplexing question has lingered in the minds of many, often surfacing in the wake of tragedies and injustices. This question has puzzled psychologists and social scientists for decades. They have dedicated countless hours to understanding why, in the face of suffering, our first instinct might be to point fingers at those who are already hurting. When faced with tragic events or injustices, it seems counterintuitive, even cruel, to hold the sufferer responsible. Yet this reaction is more common than we might like to admit. It's a paradox that challenges our sense of justice and empathy. Yet this tendency to blame victims is a common human reaction, often unconscious and deeply ingrained in our social fabric. It's a defense mechanism, a way to make sense of a chaotic world by believing that bad things happen for a reason. This essay delves into the psychological underpinnings of victim blaming, exploring the cognitive biases and social forces that contribute to this phenomenon. We will examine theories such as the just world hypothesis, which suggests that people get what they deserve, and how this belief can lead to blaming victims. By understanding the roots of this behavior, we can begin to challenge our own assumptions and cultivate greater empathy for those who have suffered. Recognizing these biases is the first step towards changing our reactions and fostering a more supportive environment. Through real-life examples and insights from social psychology, we can shed light on this dark side of human nature and pave the way for a more compassionate and just world. We will look at case studies and historical events that highlight the impact of victim blaming on individuals and communities. Victim blaming is not merely an intellectual exercise, it has real-world consequences, silencing victims, perpetuating harmful stereotypes, and hindering our ability to address systemic issues that contribute to injustice. It affects how we respond to issues like sexual assault, domestic violence, and discrimination. By understanding the mechanisms at play, we can become more aware of our own biases and work towards creating a society that supports and uplifts victims rather than blaming them. This awareness can lead to more effective advocacy, better support systems, and ultimately, a more just and empathetic world for all. One of the key psychological factors driving victim blaming is the just world fallacy. This cognitive bias is deeply ingrained in our psyche and influences how we perceive the world around us. This cognitive bias leads us to believe that the world is fundamentally fair and that people generally get what they deserve. It's a comforting thought, providing a sense of balance and justice in our daily lives. This belief provides a sense of security and predictability in a world that can often feel chaotic and unfair. It helps us navigate through life with a sense of order, making us feel that we are in control of our own destinies. When confronted with a victim of misfortune, this belief system is challenged. The idea that bad things can happen to good people disrupts our sense of justice and fairness. To reconcile the victim's suffering with our belief in a just world, we may unconsciously search for explanations that maintain our sense of order. This often involves looking for reasons that the victim might be at fault. We might reason that the victim must have done something to deserve their fate, or that they were somehow responsible for their own misfortune. This line of thinking helps us preserve our belief in a just world. This need to maintain a belief in a just world can be so strong that we overlook evidence to the contrary, clinging to simplistic explanations that confirm our existing worldview. We may ignore complex realities and systemic issues that contribute to the victim's plight. We may focus on the victim's actions or inactions, searching for any detail that might justify their suffering, while ignoring broader systemic factors that may have contributed to their situation. This narrow focus allows us to maintain our sense of control and order, even in the face of overwhelming evidence that the world is not always fair. Understanding this cognitive bias is crucial in addressing victim blaming. By recognizing our tendency to seek order and control, we can begin to challenge these harmful thought patterns and foster a more compassionate and just society. Another psychological mechanism at play in victim blaming is our innate desire to maintain a positive self-image. This desire is deeply rooted in our need to see ourselves as good, moral individuals who make the right choices in life. It's a comforting thought that helps us navigate the complexities of our daily existence. We want to believe that we are good people who make ethical choices, and that bad things happen to bad people. This belief system is not just about self-perception, It extends to how we view the world around us. It creates a sense of order and justice, making us feel that the world is a fair place, where everyone gets what they deserve. This belief helps us feel safe and in control of our own lives. When we think that our good actions will protect us from harm, we feel a sense of security and predictability. It's a psychological shield that we use to ward off the fear of random misfortune. When we encounter a victim, especially one who shares similarities with ourselves, it can threaten our sense of security. The idea that something bad could happen to someone like us is unsettling. It challenges our belief in a just world and forces us to confront the randomness of life. We may unconsciously distance ourselves from the victim by highlighting their differences or focusing on their perceived flaws. This distancing is a defense mechanism that helps us maintain our psychological comfort. By emphasizing how we are different from the victim, we reassure ourselves that we are not at risk. This allows us to maintain a sense of separation and reassure ourselves that we would not have suffered the same fate. It's a way of saying, that could never happen to me because I'm different. The separation helps us preserve our sense of invulnerability. This distancing can manifest as subtle judgments or criticisms of the victim's choices or behavior. We might think or say things like, they should have known better, or I would never have done that. These judgments serve to further distance us from the victim and reinforce our belief in our own safety. We might question their actions leading up to the event, scrutinize their character, or find fault with their response to the situation. This scrutiny is not always fair or justified, but it serves a psychological purpose. It helps us create a narrative where we are safe and the victim is somehow responsible for their own misfortune. By finding flaws in the victim, we create a psychological buffer zone that allows us to believe that we are different and therefore immune to such misfortune. This buffer zone is a mental barrier that protects us from the harsh reality that bad things can happen to anyone, regardless of their actions or character. It's a way of maintaining our peace of mind in an unpredictable world.